Friends and enemies, welcome to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast here on the CBP Media Network. My name is Joey. That is Len. Nothing we say is financial advice. We're both morons. What's going on? How are you today?
I am good, Joey. A little cold for this January, but other than that, it's not too shabby. I'm just shocked at how, I want to be sunning my balls. I don't want to be freezing them, but what I have an option. Like these days, it is what it is. The climate is changing. Right? It sure is. It sure is. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Over here, things are pretty tame. Busy day at work today. We were just talking about some work stuff before we got on here. It's continuing to every day is a challenge, Len. That's all you can ask for in a job, that you have meaningful work and you're always engaged in the things that you're doing and doing it with people you like. So I really have nothing to complain about. But anyway, man, busy week this week or what? What do we got going on in the podcast this week? Someone asked me, I should, before we start here, say that I was on with the Bitcoin Mentor Spaces group for a bit in the afternoon today, talking Bitcoin, talking custody, talking things that we're seeing up here in Canada, taking some questions about real estate and immigration and the rate cut and all these different things that Bitcoiners are keen to talk about. Very happy to talk about with people who are not up here in the Great White North. So shout out to those guys. But they were asking me, Len, who we have on the interview this week, and I forgot to tell them. So
Mr. R. Gnome.
Okay.
He's a NIM.
R. Nim. Okay, great. Well, we'll talk more about that. I'm getting out of sorts here. We're out of order already. Let's do the sponsors. EasyDNS, best place for you to buy a domain, not Bitcoin. We have another sponsor for that. But you can buy a domain, port a domain if you own one already, and get Mark and the team to help you build a website. They got other stuff too, virtual private server, suite of options there. Email, PGP, and GPG. I bet you didn't know there was both. There is. So whether you want to do website, run a Bitcoin node, Nostr Relay, Shopify, BTC Pay server, whatever, man, Mark will help you do it. We do the CanadianBitcoiners.com website there. We post there every week. Len does a great job wrapping up the stuff. I used to do a decent job writing research reports. I haven't done that in like a month and a half. And otherwise, I would say that you could also count on Mark to never bug you about taking down your stuff, which is important. We'll talk more about that actually tonight, if I had to guess, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the Canadian landscape that I don't know if it's alarming, but I think a lot of people are going to want to talk about it. And I think there's going to be some parties who don't want the public to be discussing it. If I had to guess, I would say that's probably going to be the case. Anyway, without getting myself into too much more trouble here, go over to easydns.com, use the promo code CBP Media, and get 50% off your first round of buys. Is that what it is? Pretty sure, right?
Yeah, it's 50% off your initial purchase. So if you have a big initial purchase, from what I gather, then it's all going to be 50% off.
Pretty good. Can't beat it.
Might as well do it. Big order. But second sponsor is Bull Bitcoin. And you know what? I don't even know the price of Bitcoin. It's showing me the
well, 69,000, right? I think
69. I haven't followed it for a little bit. And so then it's a good time to buy, good time to sell, depending on how you're looking at it. I think it's a discount, not financial advice, doing your own research, all that jazz. But still, you have the option with Bull Bitcoin to buy and sell on-chain and Lightning. I know that the fees picked up considerably this past week, but dropped quick as they picked up. So buying on-chain is still definitely an option. But if you want to explore something else, you could do it with Lightning. So you could do quick, cheap transactions with Lightning. I wouldn't recommend it now, but if you want to try it, the option's there for you. But other things you could do with Bull Bitcoin, you could buy your gift card. So you want to go Golf Town, you want to go to Starbucks, Home Depot, whatever. You could buy your gift cards with Bitcoin. So, that's one cool thing. So you're kind of spending your Bitcoin in the real world and kind of living on a Bitcoin standard like that. Well, indirectly, but still you have the option through Bull Bitcoin to buy those gift cards and start spending your Bitcoin indirectly. You could also pay your bills with Bitcoin. So you have, Visa bill, you have car bill, whatever. You could pay that with your Bitcoin. 69,000 is the price of Bitcoin if it ever shows up on my block clock. So, maybe it's a good time to start selling it and using that to pay some of your high bills right now. It's still a high interest rate environment. If you're carrying a Visa, MasterCard, whatever, maybe you want to pay that with your Bitcoin. You could do that. So open an account. If you haven't done so, do it. Use our promo code. And if you do that, fund your account and give all the necessary information, $21 will be added to your account and you're good to go. Non-custodial exchange, they're I'm gonna say effing off soon. That's how I'll leave it.
Yeah, they are. Bull's got a great team. Francis and the boys there. We talk to the guys every day. I'll tell you, without getting into what is said in our group chat, you never have to worry about whether or not these guys are based. Theirs based as they come. So, Len, without further ado, boosts. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go here? We've already talked about the interview this week. You got a NIM coming on.
I didn't really talk much of him. The dude is he's a NIM, but he's been around the space for a long time. Very opinionated. He is leaning left too. So not many Bitcoiners lean towards the left, but he is one. So he's going to come with a very different approach and very opinionated. Love to chat with him. He has a lot of knowledge with many different things, many technicals with Bitcoin. So if anybody has any questions, Joey, you're going to want to listen to this because, you know, I've talked with him a few times, and he is the moderator of the Bitcoin Discord channel, and he was the moderator of the Bitcoin subreddit, I think.
Okay, so this guy is not a no-name guy. That's a pretty, you buried the lead there. He's a Bitcoin Discord moderator. Okay, so he's he's been around. That's great.
He has, and I can't stress enough, the knowledge that he possesses is immense. You bring a question to him about something, and he'll be able to provide you a very detailed and knowledgeable answer. I'm stoked to have him on. He hasn't done the podcasting circuit yet. We are the first one he's coming on. So I'm looking forward to this, to popping his podcast cherry, and we'll go from there. So that's number one. Number two, before I go to Boost, I just want to say really quick thank you to the people I met from Rockstar Real Estate event. This was back in April. I met a few people, Joy and a bunch of our friends, and I ended up teaching them how to buy Bitcoin and how to set up a cold card. So thank you for that. It was an awesome process. It's good to be amongst people that are new Bitcoiners, teach them the process. There's a lot of people that are Bitcoiners. You're just not aware of it just yet.
Pre-coiners, yeah.
They're pre-coiners, exactly that. So yeah, I want to just say a big thank you to them. Boosts. I'll say some boosts. And then Owen too. He says, everything will be okay. And he gives like a cringy face after that.
So does he mean it? What am I supposed to take from that?
I don't know. Everything may be okay. I don't know. Anyways, Teets, 500 sats. Oh, sorry. Owen did 121 sats. I forgot to mention that number.
Good luck.
So, Teets, 500 sats. Do I have more sats than yesterday? Yeah. Okay, we good. It's the sentiment I have. You know, if you have more than yesterday, it's A-okay, man. It's A-okay.
It's the way to live.
BTC Dick, 500 sats. I love that you guys are doing spaces now. I think this is just a part of the package we have with StreamYard. I think it just automatically does it. Either way.
Yeah, StreamYard. Finish, and then I'll go into that a bit.
Oh, he says the more places to consume the CBP, the better. And he does hashtag all roads lead to Len. 100% they do. May take time, but they will eventually lead there.
Listen, if anyone ever says that CBP is only in it for the money, okay, I got news for you. I'm giving away like a decent chunk of change, not monetizing the spaces, views, and listens. And I don't care. I care more that we are getting our names out there, getting the message out there, and the people are finding out about how all roads lead to Len as many different ways as possible. Plus, remember, Len, Twitter never used to do video spaces. Now they do. I didn't know that. So I found that out like a few weeks back. Someone told me that they actually, you can, like I said to you before, I think I said this to you on air. I may not have, but one of the things that I like about Twitter Spaces compared to YouTube, you can pin a Twitter Spaces video, at least on iPhone, like to your media player or whatever, and then do other stuff on your phone. On YouTube, you can't do that. It's a good feature. It's a good way to watch. I don't blame people for that at all.
You could do that. Now I'm gonna say you could do that with the non-premium version of Twitter. You could just make an account and do that.
Yeah.
Even Android phones, base phones, you could do that. But you could do that with YouTube if you're a premium subscriber.
Yes.
You could then pin it. So you'd have to pay that for YouTube. It's a free feature with Twitter/X these days.
The only downside is I can't see the chats. I can see the chats, like the Twitter chats on my sidebar, but we can't reply to them. So if you say something to us, it's not that I can't see it. It's just that I can't type back. So anyway, yeah, we appreciate all the eyes and ears we get. You know, you guys know that. I don't have to tell you again.
So we got a tweet too. I'm going to just add this to the boosts because I have room here and I just want to bring it up. OPI writes to us. He says, your segment on El Salvador in episode 166 about only El Zate adopting Bitcoin is not correct. He says EZ has 90% adoption, but there are many businesses in San Salvador that accept Bitcoin. He also says Berlin also has a circular BTC economy that's already, it's only been 1 year, from 0 to 120 stores. He also says, how could El Salvador rug Bitcoin? Even if the next president makes Bitcoin illegal, people will still use it. as it will be 9 years in. Also says, check out My First Bitcoin and Bitcoin Berlin SV on Twitter. Now, I guess I just want to reply to that. I think you want to reply to that as well. I'm not talking about the people themselves. Stop using it. Bitcoin is permissionless. You could have any entity, any body, any authoritative figure say you can't use it. You'll transact in it. There's no way to stop that. It's just the businesses that have moved there. And I think if there's a change in shift in how the narrative with Bitcoin is right now, if they are more against it, it could impact the businesses that have already moved there. Looking at Strike, for instance, being one of them, but there's also others. So that's where I could see a potential rug. I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that and put your own flavor to it.
No, I'm with you. Maybe we were just not clear. Like Bitcoin, I mean, think about how Bitcoin is in Canada. It's basically everything but illegal. Like, like you're supposed to get taxed every time you send. You can't sell.
It's a commodity.
You know what I mean?
Not illegal, it's just a commodity.
I know, but like the incentives are all there for you to not use it. People still use it anyway. El Salvador is way deeper into this than we are here in Canada. It'll continue to be used. It may be a little less friendly on the government side, and the businesses, like you mentioned, might run into a bit of a difficult time. But no, I don't think they're going to rug Bitcoin in El Salvador. It's way past that now. Maybe we just weren't clear. We were probably rambling and rumbling downhill anyways during that segment. I remember we were going back and forth. So yeah, how come we didn't say anything about our thoughts about the succession plan? Like I'd be curious. This guy seems to think that, or seems to know a bit about the El Salvador kind of Bitcoin economy and Bitcoin story. I'd be curious if he's got any insights on the succession plan. So we need to get this OPI guy to write back.
OPI, do it. Send us a tweet. We'll talk about it.
We got some summertime interview gaps. We're free on a Wednesday night.
Joey, I'm not sure if you have anything else you want to check off your box of things to do.
I don't think so. Do you have anything else?
No, man. I'm ready to. There's going to be so much to talk about.
Yeah,
today.
let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about. We were short on time last week. Let's not do it again.
No, this is gonna be a 4-hour episode. First one, really fucking quick. I don't want to get into this one too much, but maybe you have something you want to say, because Tucker and Swan Bitcoin, they seem to have there's an agreement between them. Swan is now going to be sponsoring his show. I don't have anything else to say.
They're just sponsoring a tour. They're not sponsoring a show. Just a tour he's going on.
Even better. Either way, it's I'm looking at this. Swan being Bitcoin only, it's one way to help push the Bitcoin narrative and push that in front of other people. I don't think Tucker's going to be shitting on Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. So I like this. I don't see anything wrong with it. How they paid for this, how much money is, I have no idea how much money was exchanged for this one, but it's a pretty big get, and it's going to elevate Swan in terms of getting more eyeballs on their product. So I'm not sure what else you want to add to that. I don't have anything else really to say.
Okay, I should have prepared better for this, but I just remembered that midday, Corey sent out a tweet storm actually about this sponsorship deal. Mm-hmm. And I want to see right here. So it's actually pinned.
It didn't say very much though.
Let's see. Let's have a look. Swan's sponsorship of Tucker Carlson's live tour is a massive opportunity to discuss Bitcoin. Blah blah. As a former broadcast journalist, longtime media exec, and investor, I'm impressed with Tucker's change and blah 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 blah. I'm with you. This is it's a better sponsor. See, the other sponsor is some kind of like no name sleep cough syrup or something like that.
I have allergy medication. I have zero opinion on that. I'm not pro or against it. It is ho-hum. But
we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out that both Swan and this allergy medication are sponsored by Tether. Paulo Arduino is whoever is sponsoring both of them. I think people are asking, and actually, I'm in a chat with Massive Capital, and we were talking about this with another friend of ours who will remain nameless for now, and we were saying that, where are they getting the money for this? Like you mentioned, this has got to be a big chunk of change. And then later in the day, Brandon, Green Candle, and yet another group chat we're in saying the same thing. Where's the money coming from? It's coming from the mining. This was the thing that Odell and Corey, I don't want to say got into it, but there was some public disagreement about how exactly Swan was coming up with these numbers and things they could invest in and money they had and treasury and whatnot.
So they're taking the proceeds from the Bitcoin that they mine and using
I think so. I mean, how else could they be doing it? Assuming that they're not making tons of money on like user fees to both run the operation, pay salaries, all that stuff, plus now this. I figure if this is a 10-month tour, it's got to be 10 million, right? Probably $1 million a month, something like that, to sponsor that tour. Let's say he does. Let's say he does 3 stops, 4 stops, $250,000 a piece. He's got Skittles in his rider. You got to buy another $1 million worth of Skittles. I don't know, but I think it's got to be around there, right? It can't be less than that. Tucker is the biggest name in media on the planet. And I know people may disagree with that or start crying into their pillow and biting a wine cork, but like, this is just the way it is. He can get basically anyone to sponsor him, and he's chosen these guys. Now, I think it's only really worth it if these guys can get a Bitcoiner on stage with Tucker, because so far he's had this show for about a year now, I think, maybe a little less than a year. He's yet to have a Bitcoin guest on the Tucker Carlson
Bukele
network.
was there, right? But he didn't talk.
They didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about it. And I'm disappointed in Bukele about that too, by the way. But you know, it's a story for another time. But I need like Len. We gotta stop parsing, because you tell me all the time that I'm too nice to people, too kind to give people the benefit of the doubt. This guy needs Saylor. Rogan needs Saylor. PBD has had Saylor. PBD and Tucker have spoken. It's not like he can't get the guy's cell phone number. It's not like the Saylor like media team is not like banging Tucker's door down. Of course they are. What is the holdup?
I don't know. Do you think he wants to have a guest like that where it's just basically I'll tell you one pitch and you don't touch the ball again? That's
one reason they wouldn't have it. Now I'm gonna go to my tinfoil hat side, and I'm gonna draw from Mark Goodwin, friend of the show, whether you like it or not, friend of mine, anyways. Bitcoin Magazine editor-in-chief or editor. He's talked about a lot about how, and actually so has Whitney Webb, talked about how Tucker's father was basically a CIA guy. And Tucker may be an intelligence guy too. I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But man, it makes a lot more sense that he doesn't want to talk about stuff to upset certain important orders in the world, while he does talk about and try and upset others. And maybe that currency one is a bridge too far for him. I don't know.
have no clue.
I don't know. But
I don't think it's coming from the mining money, Joey. I honestly don't.
Where do you think they're going to operate?
I don't know. I'm guessing it's coming from their angel investors, or so one of these.
Whatever. I mean,
it's because the mining, unless they're getting power for virtually or actually free.
I don't know.
It's not really that profitable to mine Bitcoin. Like, not extensively profitable. It's really going to be dependent on how they
run a cash flowing business. So maybe they keep some of the cheap Bitcoin. Like, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that strategy, but maybe they don't even need that. Maybe they don't even quote unquote need new money to do this. Maybe they can just do it. I don't know. Is $10 million that much money? I don't know.
How do you just do it? You have to have something to give.
Yeah, is 10 million that much? I have no idea if it's that.
I have no idea, A, if that's the number, or B, if that's, it's something that's feasible that they could just go into their piggy bank and get. Maybe both of them are true. I don't know. I don't have enough information to say either or, but all I do
not
know
having enough information is no excuse not to speculate publicly on your podcast. Let's keep doing it. I
can't even, because I never put enough time or into this to come up with a knowledgeable answer. I'm just going to be speaking gibberish. So instead of doing that, I say we go to the next topic.
I don't know. It's interesting though. I'm looking forward to seeing. Okay, before we go on, over under 0.5 hardcore Bitcoiners get on stage with Tucker during this tour.
How long is this tour? Like, how many shows is it? The duration?
I don't know.
So it's hard for me to say.
Spawn is a sponsor. Let's assume that somewhere in the deal, even if they fucking get Corey up there or Natalie Brunel up there or someone up there with Tucker, like, will they get somebody up there from the Bitcoin side of the story with Tucker Carlson?
Probably not. If it's something that's going to expire this year, probably
you say not. No. Holy
There's
shit.
So many other people that they're going to want to talk to that's going to have a greater appeal for them. Plus, it's an election year, so all the politicians they might want to talk to, and think of all the politicians that would want to go on a show as well. So I think Bitcoiners will probably be lower on the list. I could be wrong. Again, this is something I didn't put a lot of thought in, and I don't even know how long this tour is going and how many shows they have. So a lot of unknowns. I just can't really give an answer. I'll say no. Will you? What do you think?
I don't know. I say yes. I say yes.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about something else that's kind of speculation too. Like, we're doing a lot of speculation right now. Bitcoin Core, and somebody came out this past week saying that there is potentially a serious vulnerability in Bitcoin Core version 24, and this is going to be disclosed in the next 2 weeks. So from what I understand, people that are running, at least this is all speculation, that Bitcoin version 24 or earlier, you should want to consider upgrading to at least version 25 or higher. Now, once that information came out, one of the Bitcoin developers, Ava Chow, clarified that it's not totally correct, and users using version 21 and lower should be the ones considering to upgrade to something more recent. And he's not saying that, or she's saying not 24 or lower should be considered, as 21 and lower. So it's a little bit of speculation here. At least Ava Chow is a Bitcoin developer. Didn't give a very clear answer. This is all the discussion with PetroDollar too. And PetroDollar is a great follow on Twitter if you already haven't followed him. So I just want to say, if you are running an older version of Core, especially older than version 21 or older, I would strongly recommend you consider upgrading to something a little more recent. Just my opinion. Take a look into this. They're saying some sort of serious vulnerabilities included there, and information is going to be disclosed within the next 2 weeks. So take that for what it's worth. I don't have anything definitive yet, but if this is the case, it could be something very serious, especially if you're doing validation, you're broadcasting. Well, I guess one more thing. Mr. Arnom was actually saying this. It's incredible that they're waiting 2 weeks in order to.
Insane policy. Absolutely insane. That was my first, that was my first comment.
So I'll pass it over to you. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'll pass it back to you and ask you a question. Since we talk about this quite often on Access of Easy, the other show that we do, and also on this show from time to time, significant vulnerability, should the update to a new client from that client be forced somehow?
So you're asking if you should upgrade regardless if there's a vulnerability?
Yeah.
I'm not of the opinion that you should do that. I like to use an older version, not something that's extremely old, but something that's been tried, tested, and true for maybe a year or two, just because of what it is trying to do. I'm trying to validate transactions. I'm trying to look at my mempool. I'm trying to broadcast from my node. And although it's probably been tested and everything, so the latest version that's been released to the wild has been tested and given the green light to go ahead, I would prefer to wait a little bit. I see no harm with using something one version older or maybe two versions older and going from there. So version 27.0 is the current version. So maybe you use something like 25.2, which is the latest of the 25 branch, and go from there. But that's just my opinion. There's no right or wrong. Go with your gut.
Is that advice? Go with your gut.
Because there is no real definitive answer here.
I'm just curious, like, what is the vulnerability going to be? When they say, this is the other thing I don't get about especially about the disclosure policy. If the vulnerability is that significant, why are you waiting 2 weeks? And if you can wait 2 weeks, then it's not that significant. Why are you bothering making a huge stink about this? Like, what is who decided to do it this way? I don't understand this. It's just it's bad for publicity. Yeah. You allow speculation to take hold. God knows, we've talked about this too. God knows there's certain media outlets and certain institutions that are waiting, man, foaming at the mouth, talking about, oh, we got to get a negative story about Bitcoin here soon. This could be one. Oh, in 2 weeks, they're going to announce a huge vulnerability. You want to get your Bitcoin, sell your Bitcoin before it's too late. Like, man, people don't understand that Core is just a client. And, I don't know. It's like part of the equation, but not. It's frustrating to me that they've chosen to do this. I'll just leave it at that. And I hope Noam, his name is, right? On Wednesday.
Yeah, Mr. Arnom.
Yeah, I want to hear what he has to say about this, because he's been around presumably for quite some time, as you mentioned. And I mean, there's a lot of people who, like, if you're new to Bitcoin, this would definitely rattle your cage a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't want to do this if you don't have to do this. And again, 2 weeks means it's not that dangerous. And if it's not that dangerous, then you should just, not make a huge stink about it. But it seems to me that none of these things actually jive. So whatever. Let them figure it out, I guess. What are we going to do?
Upgrade to something a little bit newer. That's all I would suggest. How new? Like I said, pick something that works for you and run with it. Just don't use anything that's version 21 or older. Semler Scientific. Talked about them before. Let's talk about them again, because they announced they're buying more corn. And remember, this is the pioneer in developing marketing technology products and services to healthcare providers to combat chronic diseases and so forth. So there's really not much of a connection here to Bitcoin, except for the fact that they bought another 247 Bitcoin. And they did so at the price of $17 million in cash. So in addition to the recent purchase that they made, they bought a bunch more earlier. So this is not a zombie company. They're not going into debt. They're not liquidating or selling shares dilution. It's a profitable company, and they're sitting on, or they were sitting on, around $60 million in cash. So looking at that, look at the price of their stock. Yet again, it went up. What other news besides buying Bitcoin was there? None. Today went up another almost 15%. Like, you have this, and we'll talk about another one in just a moment. If you're sitting on a board and you see example A, example B, example C, example D, and then there's enough of these examples out there that you see there's a temporary pump in price just for buying Bitcoin. This is something we're going to have an avalanche of companies out there that are going to be doing this. Now, like I said last week, just because it's going to pump the price up doesn't mean it stays up. As the price of Bitcoin goes down, sometime it's going to go down, right? And it never stays up forever. These companies are going to get hit very hard in the process, but when the price goes up, these companies are going to benefit greatly as a result. So it's Semler Scientific, Semler Scientific, doing their job, buying more corn that we cannot get access to.
Like I tweeted today, there's like this march of micro cap stocks to this Bitcoin treasury strategy. Now, what I was thinking about today, and I think we talked about this too, like the thing about Bitcoin, and I've said this many times, I said it, framing it around the ETF and framing it around, just buy $10 worth and see if you end up buying, $100,000 worth over time. I don't really care whether Semler actually likes Bitcoin. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is they have this thing on their treasury. They have this thing in their treasury now. They've chosen to make it their treasury asset. And whether they like it or not is sort of secondary to whether or not it benefits them. You will like it if it benefits you. And clearly, like you mentioned, you've seen a couple of big up days in that stock, a stock that was before this, basically unknown, microcap, like I said, probably still microcap, honestly, by any official measure. But the thing you have to think about here is, like, who cares whether or not the board, like you said, is looking at the Bitcoin white paper and the decline of fiat currency, or if they're looking at MicroStrategy and saying, we got to get in on this party now. Because investors will support you if they think that what you're doing is smart. They don't care why you're doing it. And I think that they're going to find that as well. I hope that more companies do this. And whether it's, a gateway drug to streaming Michael Saylor clips at your investor calls, or just a way for you to pump your stock price, Bitcoin, as we always say, for friends and enemies. I think even if they were enemies now, Len, even if they don't view it the same way you and I do, as this like rock solid store of value asset, they will, because it's going to work for them, just like it works for everyone else. And that's really the best thing about Bitcoin, is that once you're in, it's fucking hard to go back. And we're going to find that here too. The second company, I mean, I'm sure you'll have less good things to say about them. No, really?
No, I have nothing really good to say about the business they operate. DeFi Technologies is a Toronto-based company too. And they said they've announced today a Bitcoin treasury strategy. And so what are they? The DeFi Technologies, they're a financial technology company that pioneers the convergence of traditional capital markets with the world of decentralized finance. Essentially, they're into shitcoins. So anyways, they said they adopted Bitcoin as its primary treasury reserve asset, and they purchased 110 Bitcoin to initiate this strategy. And the company says they view Bitcoin's digital architecture resilience as an advantage, along with the significant value gap it holds compared to traditional assets. And they believe the gap positions Bitcoin for substantial returns as adoption increases. So they see this as a good way to hedge their bets. So what they do, they're a shitcoin company, but they're buying Bitcoin. They're at least closer to Bitcoin than, say, Semler Scientific, but they see it in the exact same way, that they see it as a way to, park their money and probably get some decent gains over the long run. So this is another one. They're buying Bitcoin. It seems like now, Joey, every week we're talking about this, and every week it seems like a new one that's being announcing this. How many fucking companies are out there? A second ago, there's tons.
Do you want to speculate on who might do it next? This is
GameStop?
No, this is not financial advice. I have no inside information, just a hunch. The next company, you may remember why I choose this company. The next company, or one of the next companies you will see do this, is a company called Cult Food Science Corporation. And Cult Food Science Corporation runs a company that, quote, is a disruptive food technology platform pioneering the commercialization of lab-grown meat and cellular agriculture to reshape the global food industry, unquote. Now, I think they might do it at some point, because you know who they just brought in as CEO. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, you and I, not on the air.
Oh, that's right. And you know, it's actually mentioned in the chat, the company that he led very recently.
Yeah. Mark Binns. Okay, so Mega Man in the chat. That's right. Mark Binns was the founder and CEO of Big Digital Assets. And Mark Binns left Big some time ago and is now the, let's see, what is he? He is the capital markets advisor. Now, what is a capital market, Len? That is your stock. That is your stock. And I think that Binns is going to look at some of these micro caps and he's going to say, all we have to do is buy $1 million worth, buy $5 million worth, whatever we can handle. Let's put something on the balance sheet. Let's put something on the treasury. Now, I would say that Bitcoiners might not be able to get over the fake meat hurdle in supporting that company, but investors might not care. I think a lot of people might say, yeah, Ben, he's got a history in the digital asset space, the Bitcoin space. We had him on this show when we were still, shitting in diapers, as the saying goes. And he was a good guest. He had a lot to say. He cares about Bitcoin. He is a Bitcoiner, regardless of what Big Digital Assets did while he was there in terms of like other assets and what they've done since he left. He is a Bitcoiner. Believe me when I say that. And I wouldn't be surprised, Len. I think that's a good candidate. Look at the stock price. Pretty long downturn here. Hasn't been above 25 cents, 26 cents, well, maybe 30 or 40 cents actually in almost 2 years.
Okay, it's time to get Binns on the horn. Let's get him.
Get Mark. It's time to buy, Mark. It's time to buy. I don't think that's a bad bet. Honestly, I'm not going to buy any of the stock.
That's good speculation on your part.
I think that's a pretty good bet on a company that might do it in the future.
Mm-hmm. Lots to talk about still. Let's move to the next topic because, okay, there's people out there, they like block clocks. Like we have one, Joey, but people want to buy them, but they don't want to pay the price that comes along with the block clock. Their quality is, extremely high. It's unmatched.
Yeah.
But there's an alternative out there that people, if they want to get something a little bit cheaper. And this gentleman by the name of Bart_Mol, MOL on Twitter. So Bart_MOL. He posted about using a Raspberry Pi Pico and something called a Pico Display V2. And by mating these two, he was able to pull the price of Bitcoin on the display, and he's pulling it from CoinGecko and Mempool. And it shows the block height, the cost per VByte, the price of Bitcoin, and a few other things that came out today that I didn't note on my things here. But either way, it's growing in terms of the functionality. So the Raspberry Pi Pico could be had for under $10 US. Shipping might be a killer, but still the price of it, that's it. It's really cool. But the item is pretty much fuck all in terms of price. And the Pico display could be had for around $20 US from the Pico shop in the US. Again, shipping may kill the cost, but still per unit price is rather cheap. So, but in the end, you get one of these small usable block clock alternatives, the one you see over there, and it's at a fraction of the cost. It's still crude and lacks a case. They're going through the process to create a case, but still, this is really cool. So don't know too much about the longevity of this display, but if you want to get something a little bit cheaper, this is an option. You can build it yourself. I'm not sure if the code is open source, but I have if I were to bet, I would say greater than 50% chance it is. So check it out. It's a cool project, and I like to see this, and really cheap, under $30.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think that's pretty cool. I want I like the block clock, but I'm a big sports ball guy, as you know, and as I've taken a lot of shit for over the years doing this program. I would love a cool sports ticker that also picked up Bitcoin stats. I'd pay good money for one of those things and put it right above the screen there. And you'd be able to see it in the interview shows as the studio continues to kind of fill out and take shape here. I think these are great ideas, Len. As much as I like CoinKite, obviously, I'm good friends with D, and I like the products. I've always used the products, but competition is good. If this guy can start selling a product that looks pretty cool and is a little more easily customizable and does a few more things, and that's good for the space. And if it's good for the space, I'm for it.
Did you see this shitcoiner that did the self-immolation?
No.
So yeah,
is this the beginning of a joke? I feel like I never saw this. If Seinfeld did this joke, I've never seen it. So.
No, unfortunately, this is the truth. So this jabroni, developer by the name of Mikol, Mikol, he's a Solana meme coin developer. So I'm basically describing what he does. He launched something called the Truth or Dare token, and in order to gather some publicity for this, he lit himself on fire. So really, look at this.
Taking taking token burn to a new level, I guess.
Yeah, really, it has. I mean, I don't understand, man. Like, this is fucking stupid shit. Why would you harm yourself to the point where you probably will never recover, just to the point for the sole purpose of pumping one of your garbage tokens? This is a truly shitcoinery. Like, there's no way else to describe it, but that's what it is. It just is shitcoinery right from the beginning to end. So yeah, somebody, I think Boomer was the one that pointed out this story to us and wanted us to talk about it. So thanks for providing that story, Boomer. So here we are.
Absolutely batshit insane. But hey, man, like you've seen some of those Solana meme coins. These people are not they're not exactly the brightest of the bunch. I'm not surprised that it came from that crowd. Still not great. I feel sorry for the guy. Obviously, it's kind of a sad story, but damn, tough. What did the coin pump to? Do you know what the name of the coin?
I have no fire. I didn't even look at the
Dare
price.
Coin, you said?
I have. It's Dare Coin, Truth or Dare, and it's called Dare Coin. I have no idea what the price is. I'm not gonna fucking look. I don't give a rat's ass what it is. But let's move on. RobinHood.
I got it here.
All right, go ahead.
Let me see. Let's pull it up. CoinGecko's got every fucking garbage token. It did. If he burned himself alive June 10th, that was today?
No, that was a few days ago.
So maybe it also pumped on the 9th a little bit and then pumped again today. Today, the pump was pretty good. It was like, I don't know. What is this? 139.
Maybe it was a sympathy
pump. Yeah, it's probably like 5%, 6%. I mean, not enough of a pump to set myself on fire over it. That's for sure. Oh man, enough of these
sympathy
guys.
pump. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, yeah, let's talk about RobinHood, and they've entered into an agreement to scoop up the exchange BitStamp, and this deal is reportedly worth around $200 million, and it's going to take another year or so to officially clear. And BitStamp themselves claim to be the leading UK-based regulated crypto exchange. And when this news was broken, it sent up the price of RobinHood shares by 3%. So investors kind of liked it. And what this does is give RobinHood some more global reach. And because BitStamp, they say they have 50 active licenses and registrations globally. Yeah. So it looks like RobinHood wants a piece of the shitcoin market and takes a slice of away from, say, Coinbase and or Binance, which currently has a very large section of the shitcoin market globally. But in the end, this has got to be a fucking stupid purchase.
Well, isn't it just because, like, we talked about this like 2-3 years ago, long time ago, when you and me were just getting started. There was exchanges that were coming to market, and when Ontario started saying, look, if you want to operate in Ontario, you're going to need a couple of these licenses that you don't need right now, and many of you don't have right now. And I think we talked about this at that time through the lens of these bigger companies who want to operate here, they'll just buy up these little guys who've already done all the licensing work. And when we talked to Jordan Anderson from BitBuy, I think he mentioned it too.
Ex-BitBuy, no longer.
Ex-BitBuy, yeah, ex-BitBuy. I think he mentioned it too, that really the licenses add corporate value to your company. And, this is one of the reasons. Now, the thing about RobinHood is that, they're really not a company you want to be in business with or relying on. If you're going to trade this stuff, do it somewhere else, because RobinHood has proven to you already more than once that they will nerf your ability to make money if the right people lean on them. You saw it with GameStop. You saw it with AMC. Arguably, you've seen it with certain crypto tokens over the last few years. And now they have BitStamp under their belt. You're going to start seeing it here too. RobinHood is looking to cash in on that sweet, sweet bull market trading fee stash. that all these Solana coins, Ethereum coins, whatever coins are going to give them now that they own a crypto exchange. I still don't think it's worth buying a Robinhood share. Not financial advice, but like, why would you want to get in bed with Vlad Tenev? He's shown you what kind of guy he is. You know, there's way better ways to trade insane tokens. Like, you don't need an exchange to trade some of this stuff to begin with, let alone one like Robinhood that will clearly pull the rug from underneath you when the time is just, you know, the worst for you and for the other users. So I think this is just a shitty kind of, you know, it's a shitty play, but maybe BitStamp was trying to get out of this, or it's the right price. Who knows, right? Like you said, 3% is not much of a pump. So I don't know how much
they were purchased like 5 years ago for slightly above this sale price.
Mm-hmm.
So they aren't the founders. They simply bought into this.
Yeah, they're flipping it.
Yeah. And if you look at it too, think about the shitcoin market. There seems to be a little bit of more of the SEC. They want to go after it. Like we had the, for example, XRP. And there seems to be, you know, they did the Wells notice already with Coinbase and Kraken as well.
How can they go after it now, though? Like Ethereum has a spot ETF coming.
Ethereum does.
But I mean,
eventually the others are going to get it.
Some of those tokens are like L2 Ethereum tokens, right?
So
I don't know.
Just because it's part of it doesn't legitimize. I'm not even legitimizing fucking Ethereum, but if a shitcoin is released, like a BRC20 on Bitcoin, it's still a fucking shitcoin, and it's still a fucking security because it's pre-mined and all that shit.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm just thinking that buying this shitcoin casino, I have a feeling that there's going to be regulations against a lot more of these shitcoins, and it's
Robinhood's an arm of the government. It's an arm of the government. Like, how many more times do you need to see these guys fucking do something stupid to the people who use the platform before you say that? You're 100% right, Len. The regulation is going to come through this platform.
And remember when Coinbase IPO'd in April 2021?
Yeah,
it was 2021. Yeah,
it was 21.
That was the peak of that bull run. And it took another 6 months before we reached another all-time high. But just looking back, it was a watershed moment. So it looks like we have another prominent exchange that's IPOing, and this time it's Kraken. And Bloomberg is reporting that they're in the pre-IPO phase, and they're looking to raise a cool $100 million. So I'm not sure how many rounds they plan to do, but by comparison, I did some digging in Coinbase. They raised $547 million over 11 rounds. And that gave them a pre-IPO valuation of almost 70 billion. And that was in 2020, 2021 dollars as well. So you have to also take that in consideration. So I'm wondering how successful they're going to move ahead with this IPO, because remember, they are still fending off these accusations from the SEC where they're operating as unregistered exchange. They were given a Wells notice and even improperly mixing customer funds, if I recall.
Commingling customer and operational funds. Yeah.
So yeah, if this goes through, I mean, depending on the value, it might be another moment that, you know, we might be at the top of another bull cycle. So we'll see if this IPO goes through. I don't think this is going to be the same as Coinbase, but you know what? They're trying to make bank here, and good for them.
Me neither. Read the bull run, but I think that the more important thing here, and this is kind of reflected in the Robinhood BitStamp thing too. I think a lot of people are basically pricing in a Biden loss in November, and they're saying to themselves, it doesn't matter what this idiot says because he's not going to be in the White House come November. Gensler will be gone. Warren will be crippled. These people who have been anti-crypto are going to lose the election. You know, David Bailey put out a decent tweet today I thought was kind of important to think about. There's almost no one who will vote for you if you ban crypto, and you win almost no fringe voter by saying you will ban crypto either. So like this idea that they're going to die on the crypto hill seems almost unimaginable, but it doesn't look like they're willing to change paths. And so if I was running a company like Kraken or like Robinhood, I would say, yeah, we got to get on this thing now, because the price of these assets, both in terms of companies who deal in this stuff and in terms of the assets on the platforms, they're all going to go up once we get rid of this stupid dark cloud, you know, the Gary Gensler storm system that's been hanging out on the Bitcoin island for the last 2 or 3 years. I think that's what they're looking at. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more stories like this. If you want to know how the raise goes, I think it has to be released. Actually, I believe at the end of each round, Castle Island, Nick Carter and Matt Walsh do a podcast every Friday where they do basically a segment where they talk about the raises. And I'll be looking for it in there. I usually listen to that show. It's a pretty good wrap up of some of the stuff you see in Bitcoin and especially American politics. So I'll be looking for it there. And I wish these guys the best. Let's have some competition for Coinbase. Kraken's a quality company compared to Coinbase. They used to have what's his face there, Pierre Rochard, Jesse Powell. And since then, they've all kind of had to move on for different reasons. But I still think that company is better than, I don't know, better than fucking BitStamp. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of people who would prefer Kraken to BitStamp for sure. And there's Bitcoiners who I really like Josh Olszewicz, who does a lot of Bitcoin price stuff and macro stuff. I watch his stuff religiously on YouTube. He's sponsored by Kraken. So I think that company knows a little bit about the space, to say the least. And I want to see them go public. I want to see these guys succeed. It's good for Bitcoin if there's exchange competition, so that you and me are not constantly talking about how as soon as Bitcoin cracks an all-time high, Coinbase shuts off and the price drops, right? You want more of these companies to be able to garner capital through investing, through open markets, to expand their operations and become competitors with these otherwise sort of companies that are Leviathan in nature. Coinbase is a good example.
We touched initially on the show about fees, and I'm going to just dive into this as brief as I can. I mean, as brief and descriptive as I can, because if you've been following network fees, they've been pretty cheap. They were low double digits.
Still cheap today. I think it's still under 30 sats.
Oh yeah, they're back to that. But for a brief moment in time, it went up to around 300-ish. It was the 3 digits. So so it turned out people did some snooping, and the reason why this was the case, it was the exchange OKX, and they were doing UTXO consolidations. And the problem is that they fucked up in a process because they were paying too much in network fees. They were competing against themselves. So either they fucked up, or they had to rush this out the door for some reason that is yet to be disclosed. Maybe there's another option that I just don't know, but I'd love to hear what people think why they did this. But either way, the fees entered, as I mentioned, the triple digits sats per VByte territory, and they've since settled in around 30-ish as in the weekend. I don't know what it is today, but either way. So someone on Nostr was saying that Bitcoin exchanges, the big ones, the big boys, they have their corn spread out across 7 million different UTXOs. So I'm not sure how they managed to figure this out, but assuming they are correct, and all the big exchanges go through the same exercise that OKX just did, 7 million UTXOs for those big guys. OKX apparently consolidated a mere 1.3 million UTXOs, and that caused this spike. So just food for thought in case there's going to be an exercise like this by the other exchanges. There's going to be a few days, maybe longer, a prolonged version of higher fees, especially if they want to rush it out the door for whatever reason. So all I have to say is now is a good time to consolidate. It's cheap enough if you think it is. If not, roll the dice, but you're saving a few bucks. It's not very much. Better to consolidate when you can, especially when you're cheap. They are cheap now, than do it when it's in a higher fee environment.
It's hilarious that like the most basic kind of retail facing software like Sparrow would let you avoid this if you just knew what you were doing. And OKX, by the way, charges 0.1% on trades. So when you ask yourself where your trading fees are going, that you just, they just lost a bunch of trading fees, paying network fees against themselves, which is hilarious. Len, I want to ask you a bit about the network fee structure and trend. Are you almost at the point now where you think that, the best time to consolidate transactions was yesterday, but the next best time is now? Like, is the trend up and to the right here more or less concrete for you? Or do you think there's still going to be these sort of, 1, 5, 10 sats per VByte periods?
No, I still think there's going to be a prolonged period of cheap UTXOs. So even with that being said, I would say do it today at around 30 sats per VByte rather than potentially tomorrow at less than 10. You're saving just a couple of bucks. In the grand scheme of things, it isn't a lot, but it could really impact you later on if they spike. And the reason why I think we're going to stay in this low fee environment for some time is no matter how much I talk negatively of the ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs in the United States, they're doing one thing, I guess, for their greater good temporarily, is it's taking a lot of the congestion away. and they just do fewer transactions rather than a bunch of little transactions, which would normally be done if they buy Bitcoin rather than using the ETF. So I think because the ETF is available, I think it's taking a lot of the pressure from on-chain. It's it's not a natural process, but it's still.
Oh man, I thought you were going to say ETF.
No, it's
ETF's good.
It's not all good. I mean, it's not natural, but it buys us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
For the time being, to see what other options there are, and there are some other options, especially being built out. There's one with the ARC team, for instance. I want to talk about that more probably next week. But right now, you have Lightning is a decent one. It can't scale, but that plus some few other things that are non-custodial nature, just give them time to develop. And I think with the ETFs, it's giving us some time. So yeah, long-winded answer. Probably gonna be cheap for some time, but don't hold me to this.
Yeah, a little at a time. Take it easy. Make sure you're taking your UTXO management seriously. But like Len said, a couple bucks, grand scheme, like get it done. It also matters, like if you're in the right frame of mind to do a UTXO consolidation, a stretch of UTXO consolidations, that's important too. You don't want to be there half in, half out, doing something else, fucking around with your computer or whatever. Be there, be present, get the stuff done in a way that makes sense and is safe as far as making mistakes too. That's important. A couple bucks, don't worry about it. It's for the network. It's for the network anyway. It's money well spent, as they say.
And I'm generalizing too, because if you're consolidating a lot of inputs, it's going to be more than a couple of bucks, even a 30 sats per byte. It's going to be, and I can understand you may want to consider waiting, but why? We're talking about something that could potentially be life-changing wealth. Why keep it stored in a bunch of smaller UTXOs? Bite the bullet, pay the fees, get it done sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
but do your own research first. This is just my own
for
opinion.
sure. We don't know anything.
Fuck all.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
CoreWeave.
Sure.
I think let's talk about them, like one of the last topics, if not the last topic, because we got wind that they wanted to buy Core Scientific, and this was a totally different story than when we talked about last week. Remember, we talked about Riot offering to buy up Bitfarms, and that was going to be a somewhat of a consolidation in the publicly traded Bitcoin miner sphere. But either way, this time CoreWeave, and they're a cloud computing company, and they offered Core Scientific an offer that, well, they could refuse, and they did so in the end. So maybe, I guess, CoreWeave should change their name to CornWeave, because if they want to get into corn game, they should first change their name and then start buying up some corn somehow. Either way, this offer was reportedly worth around $1 billion US, and that's at the time a little bit above market cap for the company when the time this news was reported. And since then, the price of Core Scientific has jumped up considerably. So the offer was around $5.75 per share, and it was trading at under $5 around that time. So it was a decent margin that they were getting here. But now the price has since settled to around $8 after this news. So it's jumped up a lot. Either way, these two companies, they are familiar with each other, because right now Core Scientific is already providing services to CoreWeave. And this offer, as I mentioned, Core Scientific rejected it. They felt that $5.75 per share was too low a price. And the real story here is not the offer and the rejection. That's secondary, I think, in the grand scheme of things. But it's the fact that it's a high-performance computing, or HPC, company that wants to be more aligned with Bitcoin mining. And GPU, cloud, HPC, all that shit, they require a lot of computing power, which in turn requires a lot of electricity. And who has a lot of electricity / energy? Well, Bitcoin miners. And the question remains to be seen is, looks like CoreWeave did the math, and they said, or they thought, or thinking that selling HPC services could be more lucrative at times compared to Bitcoin mining. And last week we were talking about oil and gas companies getting involved in the Bitcoin mining game. Looks like I totally overlooked HPC, the whole industry as a whole, getting involved here, because it may be a way for companies that are solely Bitcoin miners. They could turn a profit if they're offering services, not just for mining Bitcoin, but maybe providing HPC services. So you think about it, like companies like Google, Meta.
This was part of the Cathedra merger prospectus too.
You know what? Now I could see where they're going.
Can you though? Okay, so help me with this.
Okay. not to say that it's the right move, but I could kind of understand now.
Yeah, but why ASICs are not, like, by definition, are not multi-use. There's no power to be shared or had there.
100%.
So what am I missing? The power angle you took is pretty good. Like, these guys have power procurement that maybe the HPC companies don't have, and they've been procuring that power. They're kind of ahead of the curve in that regard. But as far as the actual compute, it's not just energy, it's chips. And the ASICs don't
Correct.
do
they
that.
do one function. They mine for Bitcoin.
So then why the buy? So I asked SB this too, and I don't remember what he said or if he had an answer. I'd be curious. We got to get him back on. I gotta nudge him again.
Here's what I think.
Okay.
So, like, the companies like Google, Meta, and all these other big companies, those data centers they are massive in scale, size, scope, everything, and they suck a lot of energy. Not to say that they're going to be getting involved. I'm just trying to use them as an example. Like, a lot of data centers out there, they're the same position, that they just need a lot of electricity. Now, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, mining Bitcoin is much more lucrative.
Yeah.
But as the price of Bitcoin goes down, which can happen, it gives potential opportunities to divert that energy rather than simply turning off the ASICs and do nothing or mine Bitcoin probably at a loss. Why not, if it is profitable? I don't know if it is, but if it is, then divert the energy to HPC and generate an income at the time when Bitcoin price goes down. That's what I guess it is. I don't know.
The transmission, though, like power transmission, is really that's the expense, right?
It would be on site. You'd have everything on site. See, right now at CoreWeave, for instance, is already operating on site on Core Scientific. They're providing services to them. So they have those units there. So why not just scale it out, have a bigger footprint, and just divert power as needed? Price of Bitcoin drops 30%, you're mining at a loss, send it to the HPC side, if that is profitable. Price of Bitcoin spikes, turn off the HPC, and then go from there. So Bitcoin, I even talked about this last week on my interview.
Can HPC really be demand response, though?
It wouldn't as much as Bitcoin.
It can't be, right? Yeah. So like you'd be, and what do you do if the Bitcoin side is the most profitable? Like, how do you sell to your shareholders? Like, yeah, we were running both sides, even though we could have done all one side, we had to do both because, some of our clients wanted us to run this. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how these things work together.
So I'll give you a little bit more flavor here. Hive, and I got some information from them. Okay. They said previously they were mining Bitcoin and mining Ethereum when Ethereum was a proof of work coin, and they were converting that Ethereum into Bitcoin, but that's a topic for another time. Either way, they said they're converting 38,000 NVIDIA GPU cards they had originally that were mining Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. They're converting that to HPC and AI businesses. And they say, I have no way to confirm this, is what they say, it's generating 15 times more revenue than Bitcoin mining per megawatt basis.
Then why stay in Bitcoin mining? At the end of the day, you cannot, as a public company, make that statement. You can't, because either you have the right idea for your business or you don't. And so if you're telling me that the HPC side is making 15 times more per megawatt than the mining, then you have to shut off all your miners. And then you're not a Bitcoin company anymore. And so you're
a hybrid HPC.
It's not, but you can't.
I don't know.
Those two things don't work together. I don't think. I can see my phone is going off, and it's probably SB watching this and being like,
I'd love to know his thought. So see, a lot of this I don't know the answer, but it's interesting to see that there is expressed interest for these two industries to at least get involved somehow. Last week I was saying strictly a Bitcoin mining company, I don't think it's going to be here for a very long time. I think that type of setup is just not going to work. If it's under an umbrella of a bigger company like Shell, or I could then see that being the case because it's part of a division of a massive company. And when times are good, they could go. But
you
when
can file it under R&D. We're developing this other strategy, but you can't do it because Shell is not saying we're going to divert drilling resources over to the Bitcoin mining side and vice versa. It's not that kind of business. But the compute one, it's the power is fungible, right? And because of that, you have to do the thing, especially as a public company. It's illegal to do anything else. You have to do the thing that makes the most money. And if it's not Bitcoin, you got to shut them off. And then I don't know. Me and you are not going to solve this problem, but it is an interesting dynamic that's starting to show up here between these data hungry companies, energy hungry data companies, I should say, and energy hungry Bitcoin miners. They're in a similar game, but it's just two different. Like the Venn diagram just barely has a little bit of space between the two circles.
One's playing baseball, the other one's playing wiffle ball.
Yeah, but there's money to be made. If you can find a way to make it work, there's money to be made there for sure. No doubt about that. No doubt about that.
So there may be more of these types of stories.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Let's take this out one more step here. I know we're a little over the hour. Sure. Doesn't this worry you that the big Bitcoin mining companies who presumably have the most influence over government are going to say, yeah, the Bitcoin algorithm needs to change for XYZ reason, but the real reason is so that they can go back and forth between mining and compute? Like, isn't that a possible outcome if we keep going down this road? You centralize all these miners in like 5 or 6 publicly traded companies. You lose tons of hash power when we don't change the algo, and then the network's not secure. This is a little bit. It's obviously hypothetical and maybe a bit fearmonger type stuff, but there's a world where this becomes a possibility if we keep saying that mining is not a business that can be sustained. Data companies want the power and want the hardware. And the only way to make sure that the hardware units can do both is to change the mining algorithm, right?
They're free to fork. The code is open source. If they want to do that, in fact, I encourage them to do that. Let the market decide, and let the chips fall where they may.
Pun intended. Chips or no?
they could do it whatever the fuck. I don't think that. I don't think that's going to be, it's a possibility, but even if it is, I don't think it's going to change anything in the end. People, we fought this in 2017.
I know, we've been there.
Yeah, right. The same type of result is going to come out of this. The node runners have a lot of say here. I'm going to run the node for the software that I like best.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of other people are going to say the same thing. So yeah, they could do what they want. And like I said, I encourage them to fork. Do it. Run away with it. Let's see what happens.
Fork your mother if you want to fork.
And those publicly traded miners, last I checked, only made up around 30% of the overall hash rate.
Yeah.
So it's a decent amount.
Okay, so last thing before we wrap up, people in the chat, people listening, should we start interviewing people in the mining space again?
We have one in the books.
Ben Gagnon is coming on. Yeah.
Not him. Somebody else from that team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
should we at least have one? We stopped because we didn't like the way these guys were going to other avenues for revenue. Should we start again? We've had requests. We're not answering them in the affirmative. Should we start? If you want to start seeing more miners, tell us. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we won't. But me and Len talked about this the other day. I kind of want to start doing it again. I think I would challenge them on a number of things. The interviews wouldn't be necessarily fun and friendly, but these guys are smart. They would at least have answers, even if I disagreed, which is what I want to hear.
They're fiat maximalists. They're there to make as much money as they're a business. They're not there to push Bitcoin at all. They're there to make money for their shareholders.
Yeah. Bob Burnett getting a shout out in the chat, by the way, from Boomer. He was a great interview. He's not a miner.
He's not publicly traded.
So yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So the amount of bullshit he has to go through is much different than say a Bitfarms or whoever.
He doesn't have a DEI panel. Yeah. Okay. You want to go to the notables?
Probably not. Let's end this one and go to notables. So
perfect. Stay here. If you're on video, you're on Spaces. Man, a couple hundred people. This is great. Hang out. We're going to the notable stories, and if you're listening on audio tomorrow, I'll put out the other half of the episode. So until then, take care of yourself.
And don't be a cock.
Great stuff. 1 hour, 4 minutes, 18 seconds. Okay, notables. There's a lot of stuff here. I saw the rate cut in the minutes here. Do you want to start there? Or you want to start somewhere else?
Okay,
notable north later. It's up to you.
Let's start with the rate cut.
You're at the wheel. You're at the wheel. You decide.
Let's do that first because that's pretty big news. So we have 3 Western banks, Western in air quotes. They decided to cut rates this past week, and these were the Danish Central Bank, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of Canada, all of which cut their rates by 25 basis points each. So notably, the Danish central bank, they were one of the first to have they were the first to have a negative interest rate. And they did that as a way to peg their currency to the euro. So they're all over the place. But either way, the European Central Bank did a 25 basis point cut. That was the first cut since 2019. And something to digest is that inflation numbers in Europe overall, they're trending in the wrong direction month over month. Because as of May, the cost of living went up to 2.6% rather than 2.4% in the month of April. So at least in that very small snippet of time, the inflation rate is going higher to change the prices. So this cut is at a time when prices are going up. Seems rather odd, but whatever. They have their own agenda to do. And finally, we have the Bank of Canada doing a 25 basis point cut. And this is going to be welcome news to homeowners who have variable mortgages or people looking to renew in the next few months. I'm one of those people. Also, it's going to be welcome news to people carrying debt, because people carrying credit cards, line of credit, really any debt that is tied or adjusted month to month based on the overnight lending rate, they're going to be happy with this move. So something interesting is with all these three banks making this move, and it was in a very short period of time, markets didn't move at all. So it goes to show you that these banks, in the grand scheme of things, are small potatoes. It's the Federal Reserve that drives it all. These guys, they just help their citizens or harm their citizens. That's really the way it looks.
Yeah, Federal Reserve is the big one. That's Wednesday this week. I want to talk about a couple of things. I hate that the Loonie Hour releases on Friday because the guys said something that I wanted to say today, but I'm going to say it anyway, assuming that a lot of you guys don't listen to the Loonie Hour because it's a sort of fiat podcast, but I still like that show. Tiff Macklem taking questions from reporters on whether or not the next move is going to be a cut in July and saying, well, just enjoy the moment, like take it easy there, boys. Everything's good for now. Enjoy this. Like, buddy, you're not supposed to have that kind of demeanor. Number one. Okay. Stupid. I thought that was dumb, but not as dumb as his European counterpart, Lagarde, who had the nerve, okay, the gall, the irrational confidence, because she shouldn't have any confidence at all, right? The euro is going to be sort of gone, a failed experiment by 2030, I would say the latest. We can get into that in a bit, but admitting in her remarks and in their report that they don't think they're going to quote unquote tame inflation until 2026. That's the goal now. Did you see the chain she had on at the press conference?
No. Oh, in charge, right?
I'm in charge. It said, I'm in charge.
How
you are a fucking idiot.
She is
it's unbelievable. She's a convicted criminal.
That was I going to say. She was convicted of something.
Convicted criminal.
In charge.
She is overseeing the greatest, fastest, most public, and most sort of embarrassing decline of a currency and a currency region we have ever seen. Ever. There's no reason for the euro to fail except that these people are completely incompetent. They committed sort of political, economic, and commodity energy suicide over the last 5 years, and they're paying for it now. And she's up there in a fucking chain that says I'm in charge.
She is.
Did you see the election results over the weekend over there?
Which country? Germany?
All of them.
No, there's no elections because Germany had an election, or France had a parliamentary.
It was an EU. It was a European Union vote, and it was all quote unquote far right, candidates. You're not in charge, Christine. In fact, none of you guys seem to be in charge over there anymore. The idea that Europe is this unified area is completely insane at this point. Only morons and architects of the disinformation believe this to be the case or want you to believe this to be the case. That whole area is coming apart at the seams faster and faster every day. I'm going to pivot a bit here just because I do want to talk about the elections over there and the polling over there. Le Pen in France, Germany in all their wisdom, big brain move. We're going to lower the voting age to 16, hoping that the 16-year-olds voted for liberal policies. They didn't. They voted for right-wing policies, including the limiting of immigration. Nobody wants what the Eurozone is selling anymore, politically, economically, or otherwise, and they're in a big boatload of trouble. In Canada, as far as our cut, we, are the state's little brother. What we do, I've said this many times, is like playing 2-player video games. Your big brother's playing and you have an unplugged controller thinking that you're moving the character. That's where we are as far as our role in the global order. 15, a quarter point saves you, I think, about $15 on every $100,000 you have. Do I have that right in terms of mortgages? I'm pretty sure that's about what it is. So that quarter point, if you have 400, 500K, might save you $70. That's enough for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 people to eat a Big Mac meal at McDonald's. Does that seem to you like it's going to be relieving anybody? Freeland obviously talking about how the sitting government has, quote unquote, created the conditions for the bank to lower. You can agree with that or disagree with that.
It's not just the mortgages. Remember, it's also like credit cards. It's also line of credit. So a lot of this adds up.
They care about mortgages. That's what they care about.
Right, but I'm just saying,
renewals are coming,
like helping people out.
Yeah, whatever.
Lower rates helps out, not just simple mortgages.
You know what? They don't give a shit about that. They care about mortgages.
It's not something I'm trying to argue. That's
I know.
Point.
There's some other like tertiary relief, peripheral relief. Fine. When I look at all the stuff that went on over the weekend and last week, what I see, the trend I see, is that politicians and banks no longer have an arm's length relationship. They're operating together. We've talked about that many times. We have gotten in arguments with guests about whether the bank is arm's length away. I got in this argument with Jeff Booth 2 summers ago during a power out here where I had to go record at my wife's office. And Jeff said that he thought the banks were independent. They are not. They are clearly not. And if you continue to think that they're independent and that they're going to do the thing that's in the best interest of the economy long term and protecting the sort of standard state of affairs, you're wrong. You're wrong. They're going to protect asset holders. That's what they always do. That's what they always do. Canada just put the loonie in the guillotine. Okay. If they cut 2 more times and the States doesn't cut now because of the election window till next year, can you imagine next year they cut and we're cutting 2 and 3 times trying to get ahead of this mortgage wall? I think $500 billion last I checked of mortgages coming due in 25 and 26. If we do that, I've seen this to my wife. She's asked me what's going to happen now. And I'm saying, the mortgage thing is fine. We have like a split mortgage. It's not really going to affect us either way. But you're going to start to see a break in people in your life, I would guess. And that break is going to look like this. There's going to be people in your life. Let's say all of the people we're talking about own a home. So, you got your friends who own homes and half of them have assets outside of the home, Bitcoin, gold, equities, whatever. Half of them don't. When you see a cut like this, what you're going to start seeing is everything else in Canada get more expensive as the loonie declines in value. Why? We don't produce anything. We have to buy everything. And when we convert the currency, it's weaker now. So stuff that comes into your Fortinos, your Loblaws, whatever, it's going to be more expensive for you to buy. Half of your friend group without assets is going to say, man, I did get the relief on my mortgage, but everything else is way more expensive. My property taxes are up. My car payments are up. My vehicle is more expensive. My groceries are up. My kid's school is up, because all those things are derivative of the loonie. People don't realize that until it's too late, but they are. They're derivative of the loonie. So you have that problem. And they're going to be asking themselves, why did I get this relief and now everything is more expensive? I can't make ends meet. It's even harder now, actually, after the 75 basis points that they cut in 2024. Let's say this happens in a few months. Then the other half of your friends, you guys in the chat and other people who have hard assets, are going to be looking around at a world where the global easing cycle has started. And everyone is saying, the US hasn't cut yet. The easing cycle hasn't started. Okay, well, I don't know. To me, it looks like they're going to cut pretty soon. And it also looks to me like they were weighted out basically by all asset holders. People who say this, and there's friends of mine who say this, and they're like, higher for longer, higher for longer. You're stupid. Bitcoin is at an all-time high. Equities are at an all-time high. Gold is at an all-time high. Real estate is at an all-time high. All the equity holders waited out the rate cut. There's no other way to describe what happened. When they actually cut, those assets are going to go gangbusters. And people say, well, when the cut comes, that's usually the beginning of the downturn. It is for the other half of the people. But for the asset holders, you're not going to have a problem. You're going to be reaping the benefits of the relief on your mortgage. All your assets are going to go up in value, and you're going to find that the more expensive groceries don't really matter, because when you look at your bank account and your TFSA and your Bitcoin holdings, it's triple what it was 3 years ago. We got into this situation because we gave away too much free money, not since 2020, since 2008. And even before that, I think some people would argue, we talk about 71 in the Bitcoin space all the time. There's no going back to sound money for the government. And so you on your end have to save in sound or sounder means: Bitcoin, gold, equities, real estate, whatever. If you don't, you will wind up like the first half of people, the sort of widget buying class who doesn't have the cash flow to save money in hard assets. It's going to be a hard few years for them, because the higher for longer crowd is right. When the cuts come, that's when the pain starts. This is why the pain starts at that time. And as far as the higher for longer crowd in the States, talking about how Powell isn't cut yet, the easing cycle hasn't started. Are you in cash? If you're in cash, did you miss out on this run up to all-time highs in basically every asset? You're going to start buying now. You lost. These higher for longer people, Luongo and whatnot, God bless the guy. But like this idea that Jerome Powell is fighting a currency war with the rest of the world. Are you fucking nuts? He's a political animal. Okay. He's doing what's best for that country at that moment, month to month. This idea that there's more than that going on, I think is crazy. Sometimes Occam's razor just works. And this is one of those times. I feel for these people who are wrapped up in this higher for longer narrative, because truly at this point, you have to realize that, as you mentioned, in Europe, they've given up on the 2% inflation target. They're going to give up on it in the States if they haven't already here as well. All these people seem not to understand that the cut is not the first part of the easing cycle anymore. It's the last. And you're in a different game now than you were 5 years ago, as far as narrative and people understanding that they can just wait. And as long as they don't have to become forced sellers of their assets, they'll be fine. And, Len, if you didn't sell your Bitcoin, didn't sell your equities, didn't wait for the first cut, you're fine. So, you did okay.
It's all fiat, Joey. Who cares? And yet, right? It might impact the price of this or that. But for me, like I say, I just care about the sats, how much I hold. The rest, I have no control. And it's why Bitcoin. When you have a few select people that can control the currency, the valuation of the currency, why? Let's take that away.
Why play the game? Why? Like, I don't like why.
Exactly. So
you got to be asking yourself now, like even the most normie person is going to start looking up from the barbecue and the game in the next few months and scratching their head and being like, what the fuck happened here?
A lot of people have it. Go on, like anytime I go on Reddit, it's so many things pop up in my feed from Poverty Finance Canada, and stuff like that. And just
I subscribe to all those things. It's just a cesspool of stories, just terrible stuff.
It's growing in numbers, So when some guy would put out a job opening and 50 applicants apply, 39 are international students, there's the things are changing. And what can you do? There's a lot of it we can't, right? A lot of these things, it's out of our control. But I go back to it. I don't want to harp on it too much, but buy what you want, and Bitcoin is what I like to buy, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what the rest, whatever happens, meh. It doesn't bother me in the end. So the rate cut, rate hike, whatever the fuck, Sure, I'll either have less in the end of the month or have more in the month. I don't care. It's
good for Bitcoin.
It's out of my control.
The easing cycle is undoubtedly good for Bitcoin. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it sure is. And I kind of want it to last longer. This cheaper.
The States is the one that's going to send it to the moon. So if they wait, if they don't cut in the summertime, they're not going to do it in October, November, whenever that last meeting is before the election. You presumably have time. Like, you should be stacking. You're at an Bitcoin is consolidating just below the all-time high. There's yet to have been a cut in the United States. You have seen now the signal from other modern democracies, first world governments, that the easing cycle has begun. If you're not allocating, this is not financial advice, if you're not allocating as much as you can now, I don't know what to tell you. Because clearly you're on the launch pad here and you're just waiting for the usual kind of, last minute telltale signs before you rip. We'll see what Wednesday brings as far as, CPI and the FOMC, and that'll be the next indication. I suspect you're going to get a dovish Jerome, man. Honestly, I do think that. You're starting to see the scene set for cuts in the States. Jobs numbers, for example, being revised significantly downward.
Let's go there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, go ahead.
Well, go on. You finish that because it's a great topic.
They're being revised downward. They're preparing you for a cut. And whether they do it next month, the month after, it doesn't matter. They're setting the stage for a cut. The data is only meant to shape narrative. It's not meant for anything else. It's not real. The data is made up. Okay. It's fucking invented. And if you don't know that by now, you're beyond help. Revising the data by 2 or 3% is one thing. Revising it by 50% is narrative control. And that's what's going on in the States now. So if you think there's not going to be a cut and you're looking at this data and going, wow, it looks strong, wait 3 months and see what they revised the last quarter's data to. That's where you go. There's a reason we call all these U.S. departments the Department of Downward Revisions, the Bureau of Downward Revisions, because that's what they do. They just kind of ease you into this idea that the economy is not as strong and they cut the rates. That's what's going to come next. It's not that hard to figure this out, I don't think. And people are saying, well, it was higher for longer. Like I have this bone to pick with the higher for longer crowd because they've been so irrational.
Because whenever somebody talks about that, because
it's a stupid take. It's a stupid take. No one in the higher for longer crowd thought they'd be talking about cuts after 9 months. It's been like 9 or 10 months, I think, since the last time the States raised. So it's not like they kept on going. And when that higher for longer crowd was talking, like I said, they're talking about like Jerome Powell, obsessing with a $5,000 glass of whiskey over a world map where he's like in sort of war framing, talking about fighting the global currency cabal with the US dollar. No, he's not. He's looking at made up data and he's involved in it.
Do you think that like anybody was saying that it was going to be, they were going to continually raise, and then as soon as they finish raising, they're going to start cutting? Or do you think they were saying that they're going to raise, keep it where it was, and then start cutting?
For sure as shit, they weren't saying it was going to be that. Sure as shit, they weren't saying the longer part of higher for longer was going to be a year or less. And you're around there now. So maybe you get a bit more than a year, but like, the Fed has already said that the next move is going to be a cut. It's only a question of when. And like I said, the data, when Jerome Powell gets up there and says he's data driven, they revise the data downward by like 45% or whatever that last number was. Like, who is still looking at that and being like, oh yeah, it's a scientific process. Like, fuck off. It's just completely insane. Anyway, is there other stuff in that story you want to talk about? Or
No.
Okay.
There's something I do want to bring up, and I want to hear your thoughts of this. There's news of the PetroDollar ending. I don't know if that's true or not, because I do some digging and I can't find anything of value here, like any.
So okay, I'll tell you the thing that happened.
Go ahead. I want to learn about this because I can't find anything from
okay, so I don't
media.
I don't have it handy, but I did read this earlier in the week. Shit, it could have even been yesterday, the day before. It was recently. MBS didn't renew the security for oil pact with the United States. So they can take whatever currency for their oil now. Russia obviously doing this, China doing this, India doing this.
Bitcoin.
The thing is, even if they don't take Bitcoin, even if they take some other currency,
it helps Bitcoin.
It helps Bitcoin. Exactly. The DXY. Think about what the DXY might look like over the next year. Okay. Let me frame this for you. You have MBS saying that he's not going to take only dollars for his oil anymore. That's pretty significant. That would be significant on its own. But then you also have this China, India stuff, Russia stuff, where they're also paying for oil in other currencies. Cool. That would be doubly good, doubly fine on its own. And then you add in that it looks like the Eurozone is going to shift politically, not just a little to the right, but like tectonically to the right over the next election cycle. France, the UK, Germany, others, all seeing significant shifts. And in France and the UK's case, I realize UK is not in the Eurozone, but still a significant part of that region. They're going to have elections this month. So, the idea that the Eurozone is not going to look significantly different is significant to me. And when you look at the DXY, what happens if the American dollar, which the DXY is American dollar versus a basket of currencies, including the euro? What happens if the euro flops? Are they just going to take, like, you can't have the DXY going vertical because one of the currencies fails over political instability, like Europe's may in the next year or two, let's say. What do? They take it out of the basket? You know, like, you're just going to hedonically adjust the DXY to remove what was the biggest second currency in the basket? Like, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, all these things on their own, it would be difficult to imagine the dollar losing footing, even with all these things, because there isn't an alternative. But now that Bitcoin is at 70K or 75K or 80K or whatever it's at, as the rates start coming down around the world, as the Federal Reserve starts looking cuts in the eye, the alternative is there, it's accessible, and it's now globally sort of recognized as a secondary asset. And to me, I don't know, all that stuff, there's no precedent for this. What's the playbook? You know, there's no playbook for this, for defending the dollar in that kind of environment. There just isn't, you know. And not to mention, Len, the U.S. is in a fucking election too. Like, even they can't get their feet on, even they can get their feet on the ground, right? So all that together tells me that you're in for a little bit of turmoil here. I would expect that, honestly, I think gold is going to perform like incredibly well over the next year. Not as well as Bitcoin, but a lot better than a lot of people think, because it obviously just had like a 20 or 30% run from 1800 to 1900. But I think you're going to see $3,000 gold pretty soon. And for all the reasons I just mentioned, gold is not as much an inflation hedge as it is an instability hedge. And you got a lot of instability in the pipeline here.
All right, let's move on. We'll talk about Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they're going to be rolling out a new program to deal with mental health calls. Not sure if you heard about this one, but they plan to send, they plan to send out social workers to deal with what they deem non-violent mental health calls, but they will not be armed or accompanied by police. So what could go wrong here when you have somebody doing, and I guess it's non-violent mental health call, but still these could escalate rather quickly. And if they're not armed themselves or have any backup to help them out, well, they do say that if anything does go wrong, they could radio for assistance immediately. Like, you know what I mean? Like, talk about stretching resources very thin.
Oh man,
I don't mean to laugh, but man, it is
funny. It's stupid. It's a stupid idea. I saw a tweet the other day about this, and I want to quote it. I can't remember who wrote it. One of these like anime Twitter accounts. They were talking about this thing, and it had a picture of the people that they were going to send. And I think it's a couple of sort of portly, middle-aged, you know, I sure hope there's not, you know, 100-meter sprint or anything involved in any of these calls, because these people are all going to die of heart problems if that's the case. If you're a middle-aged man, Len, let's say like a war-aged man, maybe like 25
war age. You're talking about Iraq war, or are you talking about
like 25 to 45? Let's say.
Sorry, my bad. Okay,
you're a man and you're 25 to 45, and you're walking down the street, and like, it would take a lot for me to have to call the police on somebody. You know, like, most situations I can handle on my own, short of like a guy who's armed or a guy who's like rabid or something. Almost anything else I can handle on my own. If I call the police, the situation is maybe not dire, but there's a significant risk of danger that requires another man to come help me with this potentially physical altercation. If I get a social worker or a woman showing up, I'm fucked. I hate to say it, but like, I'm fucked, because the situation is already so significant in my eyes that I had to call for support. I can't have somebody who by stature is weaker than me and by armament has as many guns as me. I need more in both cases. And so the social worker is not the person I need to show up in that moment. And I think that we've seen evidence of this over the years. In the UK, there was a time when many police officers would show up unarmed to things like mental illness episodes or small altercations or robberies or things like that. And the videos speak for themselves. There's no physical testing now required in a lot of police departments, even for the armed police officers. And because of that, you get these guys showing up who are outmatched physically by the perpetrator, but now also outgunned. And so, you know, are you really going to have a social worker come and convince a guy who's on a fentanyl trip that he's got to cool down, or convince a guy who's on meth that he's got to put his shirt back on and stop peeing on strangers? Who exactly is benefiting from this practice? If the answer, and I work with an addictions crowd, okay, everyone knows this about me. The answer when it comes to showing up at an altercation or a scenario where someone had to call the police, if the answer is we have to do what's best for the addict, you're doing things the wrong way. You have to make sure the situation is safe for the people who are in danger first. And while the addict may be in danger, he is actually causing the danger in, 100% or 99.9% of these cases too. That person has to be subdued, restrained, arrested, whatever. This is backwards policy for all the reasons I've mentioned over the last few minutes. And I hope it never comes here. But, if I had to bet one way or the other, Len, I'd bet that I'd be seeing social workers on the news talking about how they're going to respond to stuff here in Hamilton. I don't know, inside of 3 years, probably.
Unarmed.
Yeah. Well, look at San Francisco. This video of San Francisco from last night or tonight's going around. Got to be a couple thousand people in the street setting cars on fire. San Francisco Police Department on the record saying we don't go to stuff like that because it's too dangerous to engage. My brother in Christ, you are paid to engage in dangerous situations to protect your citizens. You're not doing it. And so if that's the case, maybe that's a whole other side to the story. Police officers are unwilling to get involved because there's no winning for them. If they restrain a guy on drugs, they're put on leave without pay because some guy recorded them and it looks brutal in the cut up. If they don't do anything, then they don't need to be there anyway, and they can pay somebody less, like a social worker, to go there and do it. Like the whole thing is just a cocktail of stupid everywhere you look. The answer is like law enforcement that takes advantage of the monopoly on violence that law enforcement is supposed to have. Train them to use that monopoly on violence appropriately and have them use it to protect the community. That's the whole equation. That's the whole thing. If they don't want to do it, then they can't be cops. That's all.
It just highlights the fact that things are getting worse everywhere, and it's, think about opportunities that are available that you could find elsewhere. Because if things aren't very good where you are, and you can't change it, then you have to change where you are. That's the only alternative.
Vote with your feet. Vote with your feet.
Heck yeah. Make sure.
What would it take you? I don't want to get arrested. So actually, I'm not even going to ask this question. Never mind.
Right.
But
let's talk about. To keep talking about California. And, we talked about the traffic lights story last week. Remember those boxes?
A couple weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It just
replaced by stop signs.
I don't know what to say there, but so now that thieves have decided to go to the next step, and they're taking fire hydrants. They're stealing fire hydrants. And around 100 were stolen in LA County alone. Come on. Over what period of time? Like since last week? It's within the last year or so.
300?
100.
Oh, 100. Okay.
And
how heavy are fire hydrants, you think? Are they like 75 pounds, 80 pounds? They got to be more than that. They're like cast iron.
Well, they're $3,500 each.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much it costs per scrap metal, but they got to be some really heavy fucking things, right?
Yeah.
So the Golden State Water Company they own and operate the fire hydrants. They say these thefts happen on a daily basis, and in fact, they've lost a total of $1.2 million to date with these stolen fire hydrants. So the reason it's being stolen is because scrap metal. These things are, as we mentioned, it's steel.
That can't be a quick process either. Like you
got to sit there. And then I always wondered because if you do that, don't you have to shut off the water going into it? Or else I have
no idea. How would you get it out of there? Like people who are stealing fire hydrants have to have a truck, maybe even like an onboard like engine crane at least to pick the thing up. So like, how are they even getting it out of there?
A couple of guys on meth.
Send a social worker there to prevent the theft. You got at least 10 minutes while they unbolt the thing from the fucking concrete.
So they got a bunch of them stolen, and they, how much longer before the person's holes are going to be stolen, right? Because they're also, it's a lot of fucking metal there. Stop. So yeah, and they say that when these fire hydrants are stolen, it puts the area in
person
danger.
hole. How long were you sitting on that the whole time? You're waiting to drop down?
Yeah, man, just sitting there. So yeah, think about it. If you have a fire hydrant stolen, like it puts that particular area in danger because they're not able to then, if there's a fire, they got to suppress it.
Yeah.
How the fuck are they going to do it? So I don't know what's next, man. California is just, it's getting worse. Now fire hydrants.
You see, they did raise the minimum wage in California though for fast food workers. You know,
are they paying them fire hydrants or no?
Here's a jokes one for you. I picked up on one that you're gonna love. Okay, Newsom raised the minimum wage for workers who work in a fast food service setting to $18 an hour. That's about $25 here, $24, something like that. Pretty good money, 50 grand a year here to serve sling coffee or whatever. There's an exception. There's an exception in the law. You ready for this? Unless there's a bakery on site.
Right, I remember this. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know who one of Newsom's best buddies and biggest owners are?
It's one of the huge bakeries over there. Yeah,
Panera.
Yeah, so that's right. I remember hearing
he left an exemption for his buddy, even though Panera is like a fucking fast food.
They're paying fucking $3 an hour or something.
So good, so good.
How are they exempt? But McDonald's isn't.
California. I love it. I love it, man. It just never ends over there. We should just do a California hour every week or every month and just put all the stories in there. Just slam them in. Bull and DNS would sponsor that for sure. 100%. That's good content. We get a lot of views on that.
We'll do a separate day.
Well, every week we'll invite Gavin Newsom on the show, or we'll do that thing that Kimmel used to do at the end of the show. Sorry, we ran out of time for Gavin Newsom. He was supposed to come on tonight. Remember, he used to do that for Kimmel used to say, fuck, who was it? Mark Wahlberg or something. We had Mark Wahlberg scheduled, but we ran out of time. Every episode.
So yeah, if you want another show, we could definitely do it. So,
yeah, sure.
Actually, we're not. we're up against a wall. Yeah, okay, let's talk about GameStop really quick.
Okay.
Because this happened, right? This whole
what time is it? Oh, we still got time. Okay, GameStop, yeah.
We got a few stories we could do. You know, people will fall. This is fucking fiat and it's at the extreme and deep fucking values.
Did you watch your buddy Keith?
Value. Did you watch know what? I'm the only person on this earth that did not watch it, and I'm proud to have said it. But the fact that, like, who was it? But one of the mainstream media news companies, they were reporting on it, like the minute by minute. They were saying,
it was MSNBC. They had the stream on, and they were commenting on the stream.
Like, how fucking idiotic is that? One guy is getting so much attention.
The best is the guy came out in costume.
Because I didn't know. I've seen pictures. That is not his regular hair and everything. Like he's done something.
I don't know. He might have grown his hair out, but he didn't look like that on the streams in 2021 when all this stuff was going on.
Yeah, but he's made a fuckload of money. He's letting
almost $1 billion, right? He's got those options that will expire, not worthless, but close at this point. And we'll see how the stock does over the next few weeks, or next week or so.
They said they're going to be selling up to 75 million shares. They're going to dilute. And right now, I think the float is around 300 million shares. So it's a decent percentage of new shares that are going to be floating around. And what are they going to do with that money? I mean, I'm wondering, after seeing...
They're not going to do it. Don't even say
why not? Why the fuck not? When you see DeFi technologies, when you see Semler Scientific, when you see what the fuck's that?
Is it good for Bitcoin to have GameStop buying Bitcoin for the Treasury? You don't
know, and I don't care because anybody has an opportunity to buy, and everybody has an opportunity to sell whatever they have. You're just moving it from one address to another. This is Bitcoin, and I have, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just what it is. So if they want to buy, great. If they don't want to buy, great. But there's an opportunity, right? Like, let's be honest. They're gonna they'll be flush with cash, right? They're not gonna just spend it on fucking GameStop stores. They're gonna do something else with it, right? They're not gonna buy the next Street Fighter that's coming out and try selling that. They're gonna do something else. Well, what's the big game coming up? I don't even fucking know. Anyways,
Elden Ring expansion comes out next weekend or 2 weekends from now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait. So it's not. Is it part 6?
It's just an expansion for Elden Ring. I don't know. Elden Ring was an amazing game. I just picked it up over the weekend because you need a high level save for the expansion.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
No, I'm mistaken it for a different game. But okay. Whatever. Fuck GameStop.
GameStop will not buy Bitcoin, but I agree with you that they should. They just don't care. They're not a well-run company. That's all.
I don't care if they do or not, to be honest. Yeah. It's just I'm just throwing it out there as an an idea. But one thing, let's go to some notable North stories because we're getting close to the end. And so number one, really quick, our immigration minister said there's going to be some opportunity to grant permanent residence almost immediately for people on arrival that are under the caregiver status. And this will be out of fairness, and they're going to be lowering the language requirements as a result. So in the past, there was more stringent language requirements, and they're not going to be as stringent moving forward. So this is going to be a new opportunity for people to get access to care, especially the elderly, but it's also going to increase the amount of permanent residents under that category. But they are probably going to be reducing it elsewhere, at least I'm guessing. I don't know. Either way, that's an interesting story, and there's going to be some new healthcare providers coming here. Yeah. And
I'm gonna play. Do you have the video that was in the group chat? Do you want me to play?
Oh, I have to dig for it, but
everyone can go to Harry__Faulkner, FAULKNER, and there's a video of a young Indian woman talking about scamming the new caregiver system. Invite your brothers and sisters in to be caregivers for your parents.
So I'm not sure if that's legitimate or not.
Well, make of it what you will. How is the system's legitimacy going so far? Has it been scammed and broken and cheated, or is it all just on the up and up? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but I would suggest to you that there's been holes in the past, and there may still be holes, and this other policy may have holes yet to be discovered. And it seems that this woman, this enterprising young woman, has found a way to bring in some of her family members, I would say.
You know which country tends to bring a higher number of healthcare, like caregivers, than others?
No.
Like the Philippines.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
For whatever reason, there's more caregivers coming from that country than others. So maybe this is going to open the door for more people from there to come to Canada. I have no idea, but just throwing it out there.
Not good. It's not good though to have these videos circulating on Twitter already about how to cheat the system. It sucks, to be honest with you.
Let's talk about construction slowdown in Canada. And Canada is experiencing, of course, record population growth, but there's been a slowdown in the construction of new homes. And the government's blaming regulations for the slowdown. And, people are arguing against that, saying that the real reason is because developers are taking up too much debt, leverage, so that they're not able to take any more debt, and it's causing them problems with continuing to build new homes. Mm-hmm. So in efforts to help developers out, CMHC, they're extending the amount of time that developers have to repay their loans for these multi-unit residential housing. And it's being extended to 55 years. And this is going to make it easier for developers to make their monthly payments. But on the flip side, they're going to be able to take on more debt, and it's going to make housing more expensive in the long run because, there's going to be more money floating in the system. And so there you go. Incredibly, they're giving them an opportunity to extend their repayment to 55 years, Joey. That is an extraordinarily long time.
It's a long time. You're right. Good post here from a guy named Matt Young, who is the CEO of Republic Development or Republic Developers. On May 1st, development charges increased another 20% in Ontario, adding millions in cost to projects, which all get passed on to home buyers. What does it mean? New projects going through applications today are going to cost more to build, and prices are going to have to go up. Just when I thought it couldn't get any crazier, our cost consultants just told me on June 6th, they went up again as a result of Bill 185. Here are the changes, goes through a quick table, blah, blah, blah. On top of that, since you pay them in advance of pulling your permit, you must pay interest on that money because you're likely using a bank loan to pay it. That's for the builder or for the homeowners there. The costs all get passed to homeowners or home buyers or whatever. And so when people say that it's speculation that's causing the housing bubble or crisis, I should say, that it's NIMBYism, that it's whatever, I would say look at policy related to the incentives around building. Taxes is a good one. Development fees is a good one. The bureaucracy and red tape is a good one. There's so much regulatory capture here in Ontario, especially in the GTA. There's like a handful of developers. If you're not one of those handful of developers, you don't get the good lots. And so you have this other problem where government and development are kind of one and the same now. And Ford has taken a lot of criticism for that. It's criticism that I broadly agree with, but it doesn't get helped by these tax regimes either. And I would say people should be mad about this kind of stuff, because as we've talked about before, no one on this program wants to stop paying taxes entirely. Taxes are important for a lot of things. I want the tax money to be managed in a way that's helping me live a better life, to help me live a better life, to have things like roads and homes and whatnot. And I'm not getting any of that, which is the problem. I think that's what's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And when you see stories like this from guys who are in the development space, it's hard to disagree. Everyone's a sort of couch quarterback, armchair quarterback. You and me do it a couple times a week on CBP, but that's pretty good data. And that bill is, available for everyone to read. And so it's not like you can disagree with it. It's right there for you. And if you think that the developer should eat that cost, well, I would challenge you to find a developer that's willing to and point me in that direction. I'd love to buy a house from that guy. But until then, you will pay for it. And you will pay for it with extended amortization. You will pay for it with more condos and less single family homes. And you will pay for it with homes in worse places of worse quality that take longer to build and are not well maintained. That's just the way this goes, right? Incentives are everything. And the incentives are very clear here.
Vote with your feet.
Yeah, vote with your feet.
All right, Joey, that's it. We're done.
All right. Good show today. That was great. You really caught me with the people whole thing. That was outstanding by you.
Yeah, in Toronto, I don't want to bring this up. About 15 years ago, they were taking them, and where they stole them from a fucking 427.
Really?
So, number one, I don't know how they were able to do
Those got to be bigger than the normal ones, right? They got to be like industrial size out there, because there's a lot of runoff. What do you call them? Basins, right? I think on the side of the 427.
I don't know if they were like on the lanes themselves or the side, but either way, to do that, like you'd have to like put the pylons out, redirect traffic. That was, and they stole them. And if a car, unfortunately ran over that at speed for whatever reason, a fucking hole like that, it would be catastrophic to the car. But then who knows what happens to the occupants of the car, whoever they hit at the same time. So man, oh man, yeah, this is something that was done, I think, around 15 years ago, and they were taking it from the highways. Like, that is nuts. Maybe those guys, they moved to California and they're doing their expertise over there now with fire hydrants. Just go back to their roots and start doing the people cover.
I absolutely love it. Thanks for listening and watching, everyone. I see a bunch of you guys on Twitter, X, whatever. Len, there's almost 300 people here on all the platforms. And I got to say, it's humbling to see that many people taking time out of their busy day to come shoot the shit with us and listen to what we have to say about all the stuff going on. We appreciate that. Come back Wednesday, Len and R Gnome.
Mr. R Gnome.
Mr. R Gnome will be in the house discussing all things Bitcoin and related topics.
Oh, so man, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it should be good. Until then, take care of yourselves.
And don't be a cock.